Well, blimey, what about that? That's a jQuery song, no less. So, let's talk about jQuery. Let's talk about what jQuery is, why it arose, what it will do for you, and maybe let's talk about the future of jQuery as well. So, a technology that inspires a song. So, JavaScript. Let's look at some context here. JavaScript, the problem child. Around about 2006, JavaScript wasn't in a great state. Browser inconsistencies made accessing the DOM difficult, manipulating the DOM difficult, capturing events difficult. All the things that you would want to do with JavaScript were difficult because of inconsistencies across browsers. So developers looked for some other kind of code-want solution to develop rich interactive content, which led to the rise of like Flash and various plugins. But then jQuery emerges. jQuery comes along. It uses existing skill set, so your ability to select with CSS selections, your ability to program in JavaScript, and it allowed for improved developer efficiency. And generally, it's considered to have a lower barrier of entry than what we will refer to as vanilla JavaScript. So what is it? It's a DOM-centric library and an API. It's a plugin architecture, and it working with the DOM, document object model, consistent and easy. It also makes working with AJAX, asynchronous JavaScript and XML, consistent and easy. What isn't it? jQuery is not an alternative to JavaScript. This is a commonly held misconception that you either work in JavaScript or you work in jQuery. That's not the case. jQuery is JavaScript. It's a library that's built on JavaScript that provides you with lots of additional, provides you with easy access to code. So you can write less and do more, which is their strapline. So the core benefits are easy DOM manipulation, easy event creation, really easy effects and animations, great support for AJAX and cross-browser support. It's led to a proliferation of extensions, has a vibrant community, and is so commonly used it's often held and supported and distributed by something called CDNs, Content Distribution Networks. More about that in a second. So what skills do you need for working in the jQuery world? Well, you're going to need HTML, you're going to need CSS, your CSS selector skills, and yet you're going to need JavaScript. There are other frameworks available before we get into this, so just be aware that jQuery is in a market with lots of other frameworks and libraries of this type, but jQuery is the one that has come to dominate. Formally released by a developer called John Resig in 2006, it's used by Microsoft, Google, Adobe, WordPress, Drupal, and some estimates indicate that around 70% of websites make use of jQuery. So very, very popular. Although we maybe see later that perhaps we've reached peak jQuery. As with most things, we've gone through a range of different versions. So there's the 1x family. That really made jQuery's name. Last supported version was 1.12.4. There's a 2x, which was rapidly replaced by the 3x. The main thing, the big jump between the 1s and the 2s and the 3s is that it drops support for IE 6, 7 and 8. So unless you're supporting really old browsers, you are best to use the 3x family. So how do you get it? Well, it's a free download from jQuery.com. So jQuery.com is your one-stop site for all of this. You can download the file from here. If we click on that, we can see that we can get the compressed version. So there's the compressed version, which is not going to be particularly interesting, but you'll see there's things in there like type of, return, function. It's all just JavaScript. And alternatively, you can have the uncompressed version. So the uncompressed version is it's not compressed down, and the white space is retained, so you have a more readable file. So this is open source software. It's out there in a MIT license. So the idea of the uncompressed version is that we as developers can contribute to this and hopefully spot bugs and take it further. There you go. So it is just JavaScript. There's var declarations. There's an array being declared there. So what it is it's a library of functions to help you be more efficient. So you can download that and you can host it on your own web server, which is absolutely fine, and lots of people do that. The alternative is that you can use what's known as a CDN. So a CDN is a content distribution or delivery network where the files are hosted on a third-party site. jQuery.com host it themselves, but you can also find it hosted on Google and on Microsoft. So a quick look in there. So these are the libraries hosted by Google. It hosts many different libraries. There's jQuery. So there's the different family versions as mentioned. So you can see the latest version that they're hosting is 3.4.1. So you can reference the jQuery library off the Google servers if that's something that you want to do. And that kind of begs the question, why might you want to do that? Well, there are some benefits. The benefits are that you don't have to host that file, so you're not paying for the bandwidth costs. And you've just seen how popular jQuery is. If your visitors are coming to your site from another website that was using the same hosted CDN, then that JavaScript file, which is fairly sizey, about 87k if I remember, you're going to get a cached copy of that, so it's going to speed things up. But I fully appreciate that some developers really don't want to use a CDN, don't want to use a third party for their resources, so you don't have to do that. Recently involved in a project where we were using jQuery on a site which was aimed to have that viewed in China, so it had to cross the Great Chinese Firewall, and you couldn't use the CDN on the site for that because those files were hosted on Google servers, which are blocked by the Great Firewall of China. So the solution was just host it locally, and that worked fine. So if you host it, you download the file, you would probably put it in a scripts or a JS folder, and then you reference it with a scripts file. If you're using a CDN, like the Google one, you reference it with a full absolute path to where it's hosted. Either is valid. So now we've got jQuery loaded, what can we do? Well, we need to call it. And jQuery is in effect just one massive function. And that function has the name of jQuery. So to call it, you can just call jQuery and then put parentheses, and then you can call different functions inside of that function. Now doing that's going to get a little bit tedious, so typing jQuery in every time is not going to be fun. So as you heard from that little song, it talks about the $sign. So what's the $sign done? The $sign is used as an alias for jQuery, so you can shorten jQuery to dollar every time. So whenever you see a dollar in JavaScript code of other people, it's invariably referencing the jQuery library. So this is a very common construct that I've in the code there. So you've got dollar, and then you've got document, which represents the DOM. This is actually an event. It's equivalent to a body onload event in vanilla JavaScript, and this is checking to see if the document has loaded. if the DOM has loaded, and if it has, it's just firing a simple alert. So we can see we've got standard vanilla JavaScript in the case of document there and alert, and then we're ready is a jQuery helper function. Function is a JavaScript keyword, and dollar is referencing the jQuery function. So I say that's equivalent to a JavaScript native on load. You would need to put that in a script tag as well to see that working. Let's show you this in CodePen. So we can, in CodePen, you've got your HTML, your CSS, and your JavaScript. The neat thing of these kind of playgrounds is that they are, fully aware of what technologies people are using. So under the JavaScript column here, I can click on this icon and I can ask to include, so it's saying search CDNs there, so I can ask it to use jQuery for me. It picks that up pretty rapidly. There's 3.4.1, so they've got the latest version. Let me save and close that. So now this pen is using jQuery. I could lift that code from there, and we could then stick that into here. Let's just tidy that up a little bit. So I've got a simple, there we go, it's fired up with an alert. It's going to do that a lot. It's going to get pretty tedious because as it refreshes the page, but you saw that working there. Let me just comment that out. We'll maybe come back here in a second, look at some other examples. Right, so jQuery came along, powered by John Resnick, because he was saying the DOM's a mess. Nearly everything in the DOM method is broken in some way in some browser. And jQuery was an attempt to address this, to give a consistency to our JavaScript as developers so we could focus on our functionality rather than the idiosyncrasy of some of the browsers at the time. So as with vanilla JavaScript, with jQuery there's a number of skills that you need to master. First of all, you need to be able to find stuff, known as traversing the DOM. Then you want to be able to change stuff, amending the DOM. You might want to create brand new stuff, adding to the DOM. You might then want to move stuff around, animate stuff, which you can do with vanilla JavaScript. Yeah, absolutely fine, it will do that. But jQuery gives you a much easier way to animate things. It has a whole effects library which is great, very popular. And you can trigger stuff, so you've got events. So jQuery has its own way of writing events which is a little bit more streamlined than the vanilla JavaScript approach. So let's look at some of these in a little more detail. So first of all, finding stuff. Getting stuff out of the DOM in order for us to manipulate it. Excuse me. So this is a real win for jQuery when it first came out because it just piggybacked on CSS selectors. So if you know your CSS selectors, if you know your HTML selectors, you know your class selectors, you know your ID selectors, and even more exotic selectors like attribute selectors, they will all work as a way of selecting that item from the DOM. All you do is you put the CSS selector inside of a parenthesis that is called by the jQuery dollar function. Let's show you an example over in CodePen. So if I have a H1 over here and I want to reference that, I can remember I've already loaded the jQuery library here, so I can just say H1, and that now references this item. To prove that to you, let's just skip ahead a little bit. So we have a text method in jQuery, and I could change that to goodbye, and we should see that update down here. Okay, so this is referencing that DOM element. Now in vanilla jQuery that would be a little bit more involved unless I was getting into the business of putting in an ID, which would be fairly easy. And that will work for anything. So it'll work for class selectors, for ID selectors. Let's just change that quickly. So where I just hop back to the code pencil. If I make that a class of something, so I've got a class there now, and if to select that, yeah, I could just say dot something, and that should work as well. Okay, so it's picking up the class selector in order to apply that. So that's great. Being able to use CSS selectors, say, is a lot more streamlined. Remember, the strapline for jQuery is write less, do more. So here's a paragraph tag of IDGs. With vanilla JavaScript, I have to say document, get element by IDGs. Not too verbose, but the other examples would be more complex. In jQuery, we get to just do that. So you can see over a large application that gives you less code to write. And then here's the class example. So with vanilla jQuery, assuming that you've got IE8 or above, you can use query selector all dot line, or you can use so that would using a class selector there, or we can use $.wine with standard jQuery. So again, less code to write because we've got the dollar selector there. Now once you find something, jQuery also comes with some handy traversing tools. So you can move up and down the DOM from the element that you've found. So you can find all the children of an element. You can find all the immediate children of an element. You can go to the next sibling of an element. You can go up to the previous sibling, and you can look for parents and parent and parents. So this is quite clever stuff because it means you can navigate up and down the DOM from the element that you've identified. And that leads to quite nice kind of relative code where you click on something, you can navigate up or down from the DOM from that point to manipulate other elements within the document. And there's loads of these, so we can look for numeric occurrences of a match. We can look for odd or even occurrences of a match. We can nicely produce things like stripy tables. You can look for the nth child of a parent. You can do a contains to see if an element contains a certain bit of text. So these are more kind of sophisticated DOM selection tools that are part of the jQuery toolkit. There's some demos here if you want to have a look at them. You'll see, for example, if I look at odd and even, what I can do is I can have it highlight the odd items, or I can have it highlight the even items by using odd and even down there. So selecting stuff should be a lot easier than in the vanilla JavaScript world. And once we found it, we can change stuff. And we have that jQuery took an approach to use some methods to replace what in vanilla JavaScript are properties. So in vanilla JavaScript, you would target a node and you could use inner HTML to set the inner HTML value. With jQuery, they've decided that HTML is a method. So it's a helper method, and you feed the values in that way. And you can also use that to retrieve the value as well. So you can use HTML method to retrieve a HTML value from a particular node. Text is equivalent to inner text in vanilla JavaScript, which again is a property in vanilla JavaScript, but in jQuery they've chosen to make that a method. So you have a text method where you can both get and set the text value of a given targeted node. We also get to manipulate CSS very nicely with jQuery, because that's obviously something that developers want to do to change the appearance of a page. So we have, first of all, we have an add class method, and this is basically a helper method for the vanilla JavaScript set attribute. So instead of having to say set attribute class highlight, we can say add class. We can just add that class in directly. Let's show you an example over in CodePen. So let's target it. Let's first of all let's create a little class over here. So I'll create a class called highlight, and let's set the background color to be red. Right, so we've got a little class there now, and let's target this. Well, let's change it so we target the H1. What we'll do is we'll say add class, and because the method is add class, you don't need to put the dot in. It knows it wants to add a class, so I can just put highlight in like so, and it should apply that down there. You could also chain these things internally, so I could then say dot text, and I could change that to some text. So I'll add the class, and then it'll chain in the text change as well. So as well as adding them, we can remove them. So these examples have got events wrapped around them as well to make them more fully fledged examples. We'll come to events in a second, but you've got remove class. Does as it says on the tin, it's going to take a class away. Vanilla JavaScript equivalent would be target, node, remove attribute class, highlight. So we're getting less code to write there. Write less, do more, remember, is the tagline. And then the CSS method. So the CSS method will write an inline style to that element. Now, generally inline styles should be frowned upon. In the initial, but I would put a caveat to that. Inline style should be frowned upon in the initial development of the page. Once you get into the fact that JavaScript is manipulating the page on the fly, inline styles are fine. Inline styles can be used to change the appearance of stuff based on user input. So the CSS method can be used to set properties and values. So this is setting the colour there. So let's go to our CodePen. And instead of adding a class there, I could have set the colour on that H1 to be that blue effect there. So if I inspect that, you'll see what it's done. It's added an inline style. There's the colour, and it's actually used RGB values to set that. So it's set an inline style, which is fine. You may want to just word of warning, things like background colour, which has a dash in it. So any CSS properties that have a dash in it would need to be placed in quotes, or you camel case them. So your background colour will become background colour with a capital C. And you might want multiple values, so you structure that in a JavaScript object format, more of which later on. So these curly braces here, I've got two properties, background colour and then foreground colour, and I can apply them both. So that's the construct for a JavaScript object. Much more on which later on, not in this video but later on, and let's stick that in there so we can apply both the foreground and the background colour. See, the background colour is white there. Let's change it to something else so that you trust that it's worked. Change it to yellow. There we go. Right, so we can find stuff, we can change stuff, and we can add stuff. So in vanilla JavaScript, this is fairly tedious. There's lots of different methods to create stuff. You might need to, first of all, create a paragraph tag. You might then add a text node to that, and then you would then add the text node to the node, and then you need to find the node where you wanted to place it in the DOM, and then you could add it to the DOM with the insert before. So a lot of code going on there in order to insert something to the DOM. With jQuery, it's write less, do more. So that code in jQuery is just equivalent to this. So we can just call the dollar sign, call the jQuery function, and then we can just put some HTML in there. So I've got a little paragraph tag, and we can say insert after, and then that's the target element where I'd like to place it. Dead easy. As I say on this slide though, remember the thing with jQuery is it does come at a cost. You are having to download this library each time, so nothing's free in life. You have to download the library, but just put that out there. The library is always required. That's how you're getting this lighter code, because you're installing this jQuery library. So inserting and removing elements to the DOM, as you'd expect, they have a range of helper methods for this as well. So you've got insert before, insert after, prepend, append, remove. So you've got a full set of tools to be able to manipulate the DOM, adding new stuff at a particular location in the DOM, and removing stuff if you don't want it to appear in the DOM any longer. Now this is one that's really popular. This is kept jQuery at the top of that list of jQuery libraries, because moving stuff around is fun and it's dead easy to do in the jQuery world. So let's look at, well, first of all, a quick start on events. This is what an event looks like in jQuery. More on this later on. You see we've got an on click, and then we've got a event handler function, just like you would do in vanilla JavaScript. This is the first effect I'm showing you, hide. So let's shove that into our CodePen. In it goes. Right, so it's lost all the styling, but we've got an on click on the H1, and it's going to hide. So what's that actually going to do? When I click on it, it will hide it. Okay, so that's a hide method. What it's doing is just using CSS to set the display value to none on that H1. That's what it does. But it just streamlines that. It's a helper method to get you to that point. There's a reverse of this show. So what show will do is it will take an element that is hidden, and it will change its display type to block or inline, depending on what it considers to be the most appropriate CSS block type, display type I should say, and it will then reveal it. So let's go to our CodePen. So let's make this hidden first of all. So I'll create a class called hidden. We'll just set this to display none, so that will disappear. And let's have this happen. Well, let's stick a H2 in here, and let's say show hello. Right, so if we now have a H2, so when we click on the H2, we're going to say H1 show. Right, so hello is hidden. Let's just change this to show message, sorry, so we don't confuse things. So we've got show message, and hello is hidden. When we click on the H2, it's going to reveal that. So down here we go, click on that, and it reveals it. Now, show and hide can be animated. So as well as just switching from display none to block or vice versa, you can have that happen over time. So you can provide a string to indicate how fast or slow you want this to happen. So going back to our CodePen, in here we could say show fast. Right, so we go here and it does that. And we can, these are actually values, that's a text helper to a number. These are values in milliseconds that actually relate to a JavaScript method called setInterval, which takes a value in milliseconds. We can feed these in manually, so if I put in 4,000, it's going to take 4 seconds to reveal that now. So you see it's taking its time there to reveal it. So what it's doing over time is changing the number of CSS properties to reveal it. And there you've got the same with hide, and you've got a number of these. So these are the jQuery effects. So you've got things like fade in and fade out. Let's show you one of these in action. So let's change this to a fade in. So this time it'll fade in. You've still got the slow value there, and we do fade out, which would be the opposite. And you also have, with a lot of these effects, there is often a toggle effect. So it will work out whether you need to fade in or fade out, and it will make the appropriate choice. So if I change this to fade toggle, let's reduce it to a second, 2 seconds, so we can see it. Right, so what will happen now is I'll fade in, I can fade it out. Okay, so the great thing about that is there's some Boolean if-else logic buried away in jQuery doing that for us, working out whether it needs showing or whether it needs hiding, and then it just does that for us. So that fade toggle is hiding away, I don't know, 9 lines of vanilla JavaScript for you and automating that process. And there's loads of these. So a really popular one is slide up, slide down, and then the toggle version. Let's show you that. Let's change this to a slide toggle. Great for kind of menu systems. So we've got a slide toggle now. And this is what I used on the mobile first lab for the menu that slides up and down. So you can have that slide up, that slide down and slide up. Let's speed it up a bit, let's make it fast. So we can slide up and down, great, okay. And you can also create animation effects on these, so we're going to go into here, but the other parameter that you can add in is to do with the transition graphs that you can apply to these. So the easing graphs, I should say. I'll talk more about those in another section. But here's, you'll find demos for these effects here on the slides. Okay, events. So we kind of touched on events there. You had a little sneak peek as to how they work. Again, what we're interested in is just streamlining things. So that's the element we want to click on. So we can just say on click. Okay, so it's equivalent to add event listener in the vanilla JavaScript world. We still have the concept of a event handler, just like you would do in vanilla JavaScript, and that can be anonymous or named just as it can in vanilla JavaScript. So on is fine, that certainly shorten things down a bit, but you can take it even further because there are shorthand methods to all the really popular events. The likes of a click can be shortened down to this. So you saw there in the code pen, I was saying on click, so when I click on this H2, it was performing the slide toggle. I could have refactored that down to just that, and that will work just as well. Okay. Now in events, so this is not unique to jQuery. This would be the case with add event listener in the vanilla JavaScript world as well. It's interesting to make use of the this keyword because the this keyword has the current context. So as we stand here with no additional changes to this would refer to the current H1, to the element that we've clicked on. So that relative code is pretty handy. There's lots of kind of use cases for that. So I could be saying this, so $this dot add class highlight. So as well as doing the slide up, slide down, it's going to add the class of highlight like so. And I should mention as well as slide toggle, you have toggle class. I think that's right. So now it will do that. So it'll toggle the class on and off as well to give me even more functionality. So to do all of that in vanilla JavaScript would be quite a lot of code, 10-15 lines maybe. Kind of neat how we can do that in jQuery. So remember the tagline is write less, do more. Loads of events, has to be said. Remember, jQuery is JavaScript. You're not going to get events that don't exist outside of JavaScript. The whole point of this library is to streamline the code that you write. It's not going to give you additional features that weren't there. It just streamlines it. So, just a devil's advocate point to finish off on. You saw how the percentages for jQuery, so it's popular. I think it's pertinent to ask the question, have we reached peak jQuery? Where when you've got numbers that high, I guess it's inevitable that the only way is down, so there's that element to it. But certainly over the years, jQuery uniqueness and ease, its features that were designed to ease things for developers have generally been replaced as the standards community has adopted their ideas. So Query Selector and Query Selector All, they now in modern browsers will support CSS-based selection. So if that was what you loved about jQuery, you can do that now with vanilla JavaScript. So it's not such a unique selling point of jQuery as it once was. The animation stuff I've just shown you as well, you can achieve a lot of that now, and indeed more, with CSS3 at keyframes. And the thing with CSS animations is that they are much more efficient than JavaScript animations. They use hardware acceleration, so they're much more efficient, particularly over phones. So on phones, your battery is going to be hit by JavaScript animations more so than it would be by CSS at keyframe animation. Talk more about animations in a later video. And then we haven't touched on it here, but in a later video we'll talk about Ajax. And the thing with Ajax, asynchronous JavaScript and XML, again, classic case of verbose code in vanilla JavaScript, but with jQuery it reduced that. But now in ES6, which is ECMAScript 6, a major upgrade to JavaScript which occurred a couple of years ago, we got a new helper method in vanilla JavaScript called fetch, which somewhat replaces jQuery's helper method. So on a use case basis, you do need to think whether you actually need jQuery, because remember the cost is you're downloading that file, and that file currently is, I've got jQuery, where was it? Oh, can't find it now. So let's go to jQuery. It did tell us how big the file was, and I've forgotten. No, it didn't. But it is a sizable-ish file, 80 odd K, something around that region. So if you wanted to reduce the download, the overhead on your visitors, if you can get away with doing things using the standards, that to my mind is always a better approach. Okay, hopefully that's given you a nice little overview as to what jQuery is about. There's supporting lab material for this on Blackboard for you to have a play with the jQuery world, using events, using selection techniques, and using some of those nice little animation effects. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for watching.